Welcome guys. We're gonna paint this beautiful frozen rose ornament today. I'm just gonna let you know the colors that we used. I used deep yellow, burnt sienna, orange, I think that's Hooker's green, light magenta, cerulean blue, gray, and Mars black. The brushes that I used were like, I just used a very large brush to do the background, and then I just used a flat brush, medium flat square brush, and a small brush, and I did use a fan brush as well. So hope you enjoy. Okay, we are starting off by mixing a little bit of blue and some white together, and we're going to go ahead and paint the background with that. Very little blue, very pale. Okay, so the entire background. My canvas is 11 by 14. So next I have a gray, a little bit of gray, but I'm going to put a little bit of white in that gray. We'll keep that gray for later. Okay, and I'm just going to paint out the shape of the ice ornament. So it doesn't really matter what shape. So I'm going to go ahead and paint out the branches next. So I'm going to use the green, the yellow, and the white next. And I'm going to use a fan brush. Okay. Mine's been pretty used up quite a bit. That's what we're going to use. I'm going to go ahead and probably use some of that gray as well to darken some of my green. Okay, so I have some gray, and I'm going to darken some of my green. Actually, I think I'm going to take a little bit more gray. Darken that up a little bit. Maybe a little bit of yellow in there. Okay. So gray, green, and yellow. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pretty much tap wherever I feel like tapping some of this green that we just made. So I'm just moving my brush around, trying not to keep it in the same direction. Once in a while, I'm going to grab a little bit of extra white. Oh, I got a little bit of blue in there. We'll make it work. I'm just moving my brush around all different ways. I think I'm going to need a little bit more gray, more than I thought. So I'm using the different combinations each time. The gray, the green, the yellow, and the white. Of course, some of my blue got in there, but that's okay. Leaving some white areas or some of the light blue areas peeking through. And it's okay if you go into the ornament, into the center of the ornament a little bit. We're going to be covering that up with a lot of gray later. So you don't have to be careful. Once in a while, I'm going into the white. Go ahead and grab some of that white on the fan brush. I'm never cleaning my brush at this point. So if you don't have gray, you can just make yourself a gray with the black and white. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and paint the center with a medium brush, and I'm going to paint it, the whole thing gray. So just the gray, and we're going to cover up the entire ornament. You know what? I'm going to make sure that gray is a little bit lighter. It's a little bit darker than I want it. So I'm just adding a bit of white to it. More white. The direction of your brush does not matter. Could have probably used a larger brush for this. So if you don't have a fan brush to do all of the branches and all of the green, the pine needles in the background, that's okay. You can just use whatever brush. The background is not really the most important part. It's kind of like, how do I explain it? It's just, I don't know. It's just in the background. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit more green. I've got more green on my plate. Might as well add some layers. Anything goes back here. You can see I'm just smudging some of it in. Okay. Just going to go ahead and load my brush up with some white paint. And I'm just going to go ahead and put sort of like a circle of white in here. Can smudge in a few extra areas. I like to use my fingers to smear it. Put a little extra right over here. Okay, and I'm just going to do the edge of this ornament as well. I did not set myself up properly for this. I'm not too comfortable. I am going to have to learn. I don't know, the lighting's not right. I'm not sitting comfortably. kind of painting in a different area. My husband's doing some renovations in the basement, finally, so that I can have a permanent area to paint. So next I have burnt sienna and black. I'm going to mix those two together, and I'm going to paint the trunk of the tree and a few branches. So I'm going to use this little square brush that I already used for that I was painting the ornament with. I'm going to continue with that one. So I'm just mixing those two together and kind of keep it a little bit streaky. And I'm going to go ahead and paint the trunk. And down here as well. And we can go ahead and put one area a little bit darker. I've grabbed just a little bit of black on my brush. I didn't clean my brush, I just put a little bit of black. And I'm just gonna highlight, or sorry, darken one side of the trunk. And I'm going to go ahead and just randomly pick some areas to put some branches, okay? We're going to put more greens in a bit, but for now, just a dry brush. I'm not even, try not to put too much paint on your brush. So if you have a little bit of paint, you can just wipe it off on the side of your plate and then go ahead and just do some random trunks or branches anywhere you want. You don't have to try very hard to try to make it look like anything. Just kind of like skim the canvas with your brush. Just randomly. Or you could have just left it the way that you had it if you're happy with it the way that it was. You can even use a popsicle stick or a palette knife to scratch some of these branches on here. So really anything goes, put them however you want, all the different thicknesses. No rhyme or reason. And you can see I'm not even reloading my brush. It's going like for a really long time. I don't think I will reload. Okay, so we are going to leave this area. Without cleaning my brush, I'm just going to add just tap into the white a little bit And I'm just going to go ahead and just, I don't know, make some random little dots here on the trunk. Just touching with the corner of the brush. Not sure if I can do something with that lighting. It's a lot more comfortable in the basement. Okay. So I still had some of my burnt sienna on my plate with the black, and I decided to mix it up with some of the green. Okay, because I kind of like that shade. So the burnt sienna and black and the green, and I'm going to go ahead and just tap again into the full the greens. Okay. Just some areas. Don't worry too much. If you get some on the ornament, we can go ahead and fix that up afterwards. As you can see, I'm just randomly applying the 3 colors that I just mentioned. I tend to look at the camera quite a bit. I don't know, I just get another view of what the painting looks like. You can go ahead and put back some of that white in some areas if you want. Just tapping in some white in some areas to make it look like there's a little bit of daylight or a little bit of snow peeking through. It's muddied up, that's okay. I didn't clean my brush. Okay, I'm gonna get started on the stem. We're gonna do the stem next. of the flower. So you probably have a little bit of green left or brown or anything. I'm going to just go ahead and scrape some of this green with a little bit of white, and I'm just going to decide where I want the stem to be. And I'm just going to use a medium brush and just go ahead and just give it like a rough, doesn't have to be perfect, but I did go into the green and some white, and it kind of gave it like a little bit of a shading. I'm going to go ahead and paint out the shape of one of the leaves. And then there's another one down here. And another one over here. This one sort of overlaps. And the stem sort of fades. So without I'm just going to go ahead and paint out a few little stems for some extra little tiny little flowers. I'm going to go ahead and just use this square brush again, this flat brush. And I'm going to go ahead and randomly I'm not reloading. Okay, and I still have some of that green that I had from here, from doing the background. I'm just going to go ahead and just fill it in with whatever green I've got on my plate. We'll make adjustments later. One down here, I am just going to add a lot of white to it right now because it's obvious there's a lot of white. So without cleaning my brush, I just put a lot of white on my brush. And right over here as well, there's a lot of white right here. So again, I did not clean my brush. And let's put some over here as well. Couple of extra leaves. I'm using whatever I've got left on my plate. Brown, black, green, just because these are darker. Okay, good enough for now. So now I'm just going to grab a little brush with a little bit of white paint. Sorry, you can grab a lot of white paint, doesn't matter, because we're just going to dab some flowers, just tapping some white flowers right at the tips of all of those little stems. Okay, so there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just randomly, just little blobs. Okay, we're going to get back to that a little bit later too, because it's going to fade. We're going to need a little bit more. So now I'm going to decide my flower. I'm going to go ahead and choose, I'm just using white paint for now. I'm just going to decide where that flower is going to be. Just going to give some kind of shape to it. Pretty organic. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of white down here. Just going to strengthen this white, this area right over here with a little bit more white. This is not a very good brush. It must be like a really cheap brush, so I'm kind of just using it to like smudge. You can use any brush that you want for this. I don't know where this comes from. It's not one of my better brushes. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the flower and see where that goes. The flower, I'm using yellow, orange, pink, and white. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some on my plate. So deep yellow, orange, light magenta, and white. Don't need a lot of paint here. You don't need a lot, okay? We tend to put too much on our palettes, I find. Okay. Pardon me. And white. Oh, you know what color? I gave this I pre-painted it to test it out. Actually, the burnt sienna. A little bit of burnt sienna for that as well. Okay. Yellow, orange, light magenta, burnt sienna, and white for the flower. I've got way too much paint here. Again, I'm going to use that little flat square brush, if I can find it. Right here. Just going to clean that off a little bit because I don't usually clean it, my brushes, but now I'm changing completely to new. I don't really want those contaminated. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the orange. orange, maybe a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and start painting out the rose. I'm going to paint the entire thing yellow and orange to start. Okay, so the rose, that's probably the hardest part of this whole painting. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the rose. I'm going to go into my white paint, and I'm going to go into the orange and the yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and choose randomly. I'm just going to pick an area. A petal. Again, I went into the white, the yellow, and the red, and I'm going to go ahead and try to paint another petal here. Now I'm just loading up into the white. I'm not cleaning my brush. Once in a while, I'll add some pink to that. I'm going to go ahead and go into the back here with a little bit of the pink. I added all the colors and pink as well. So you might be working on the flower for a little while. So just be patient and don't be upset with yourself if it doesn't turn out perfectly the first time. I've got a lot of pink and orange in this area over here. I'm not cleaning my brush still. I'm just going to go into the burnt sienna and I'm just going to do the edge over here. I'm kind of painting while it's wet. I'm going to go ahead with the burnt sienna and just go ahead and put a little area here with the burnt sienna. Maybe edge this out a little bit. A lot of white in this one. White and yellow. A lot of glare in this room. It doesn't have to be exactly like the photograph. Just put petals wherever you want to put petals. Just remember to highlight with the pale colors and use the burnt sienna and dark to go inside, inside or where you want a shadow. So much glare. It's very random. It's kind of just keep working it until it makes sense to you. Maybe put a little bit more yellow in here. I only have one section with yellow right now. Where else should I put yellow? In here. A little more contrast. That makes all the difference when you start adding contrast. Some dark areas and some light areas. My rose doesn't really look like the rose on the photo. It's kind of hard to do that, how would I say that, for me, without a grid and stuff. So I'm just kind of working it until I feel like it looks like a flower. Add a little bit of white, a little bit of highlight. Make sure you've got highlight and make sure you've got a lot of dark and a lot of light. Put a little bit of light down here. There you go. Starting to come to life. As well, I think I'm just going to go a little bit darker in some areas here. So I'm using the burnt sienna for the darkest part and very pale pink or white to do the highlights. But since I don't wash my brush, it's never really white, it's very pale white. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some yellow and pink, whatever I've got on my brush. I'm gonna go and dab it in the center or somewhere on this flower. Just add a little bit more color to these little flowers here. And then we're gonna go ahead and go back into the white in a bit. Okay, so we're gonna paint out the string. So I didn't clean my brush. I'm just gonna go ahead and paint a white string. Just loaded my brush with the white paint. And it's a little bit not so white, but that's okay with me. Okay, so next I'm going to, I mean, you can paint forever. I mean, you can highlight, whoops, these tiny little branches if you want, up to you. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to work on these leaves a little bit. I think what I want to do is add a lot more white, like the bubbles. Okay, so I am going to clean this brush off a little bit. And I'm going to go into the white and I'm going to just tap some areas that are going to be like bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tap. I'm going to choose this section to start with. I'm going to go on top of this leaf. I'm going to go on top of this leaf as well. So I kind of did this painting to teach myself how to edit. So I'm going to do that. I don't know how that's going to work out. Already the sound is not sounding so great. The area to paint is a little awkward for me, but we'll figure it out. It's a cool, kind of a cool painting though. So I'm gonna go ahead around the entire painting and do this randomly. So again, I'm just tapping a little bit of white and then I'm just kind of smearing it on. Look like some of these are frozen underneath. And some of them are above. These little ornaments, we find them throughout our trails, our walking trails. People have been making them, it seems, all winter long. One of the girls that I know posted this on social media, Brandy. She went for a walk and she took a photograph of this one and I love it. Love it. It's just what I felt like painting today. Gotta be in the mood for certain things, huh? I think this one is pretty much done. What do you guys think? Take care, guys. I'm going to keep practicing and trying to figure out an area that has the best sound, but it might be a little while. I think I'm kind of stuck in here for a little bit, but it was a little bit awkward to paint. I think I'm gonna have to bring in my my standing easel. This one keeps wanting to fall over. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this like frozen rose ornament that we find all over our little walking trails in this little town. Take care. I hope you enjoy painting this.